My name is Elsa, and at 34 years old, I watched 7 years of my life get thrown into cardboard boxes while my boss laughed with his new golden hire. That Friday morning, security guards escorted my entire team out of Tech Vision Solutions like we were criminals, while Marcus stood there smiling with Brandon the miracle worker, who was supposed to replace us all. Just yesterday, he'd praised our record-breaking quarter. Before I tell you how we turned this catastrophe into the sweetest victory, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted at work, hit that subscribe button, because this story will prove that justice does exist even when it seems impossible. When I first joined Tech Vision Solutions as a junior analyst 7 years ago, I never imagined I'd build something that would become both my greatest pride and my most painful loss. Over those years, I climbed from that entry-level position through 3 promotions, each one earned through late nights, innovative solutions, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. But my real achievement wasn't my own advancement. It was the team I built. 4 years ago, when they finally gave me the authority to assemble my own marketing analytics department, I knew exactly who I wanted. Jennifer was my first recruit, a brilliant data scientist I'd met at a conference where she was presenting groundbreaking predictive modeling techniques. She'd been at Microsoft comfortable and well paid, but when I explained my vision for what we could build together, she took the leap. As a single mum raising twins, she needed flexibility, and I promised her she'd have it as long as she delivered results. She delivered beyond my wildest expectations. Carlos came next, a UX researcher I discovered at a struggling startup that was about to go under. His insights into user behavior were unlike anything I'd seen. The way he could translate raw data into human stories that drove real change was magical. He was supporting his elderly parents, who'd immigrated from Colombia, sending most of his salary home for their medical expenses. When I offered him stability with growth potential, tears actually welled up in his eyes. Amy was different. She came to us as an intern fresh out of college with more enthusiasm than experience. But I saw something in her during her interview, a hunger to learn, combined with an intuitive understanding of marketing strategy that you can't teach. Over 2 years, I mentored her personally, watching her transform from a nervous graduate into a confident strategist who could hold her own with executives twice her age. Derek was my biggest coup. He was working at Google, part of their elite development team, when I met him at a tech symposium. It took me 6 months to convince him to leave that Silicon Valley prestige. What finally swayed him wasn't the money or the title, but the promise that he could build something from scratch, something that would be entirely his creation rather than just another cog in Google's massive machine. Together, we became something extraordinary. Our proprietary analytics platform didn't just crunch numbers. It predicted market trends with 87% accuracy, saving the company $3 million in the first year alone. We won Innovation Team of the Year twice back-to-back, something no other department had ever achieved. Our insights increased client retention by 40%, turning Tech Vision from a mid-tier player into an industry leader. Marcus had been my champion through it all. For 5 years, he'd been more than just a boss. He was my mentor, my advocate, the person who fought for my promotions when others doubted a young woman could handle the responsibility. Every Friday, we'd have lunch at the Italian place across the street, discussing not just work but career trajectories, leadership philosophy, life goals. He knew I dreamed of running an entire division someday, and he promised that after we completed the Morrison Industries project, the VP position would be mine. He'd already started introducing me as his successor at industry events. The Morrison Industries contract was our crowning achievement, $10 million, the largest single deal in company history. James Morrison himself had flown in to sign it, specifically mentioning that Elsa's team was the reason he chose Tech Vision over 3 larger competitors. The CEO, Robert Chen, had personally come to our floor to congratulate us, shaking each team member's hand, telling us we were the future of the company. We had a board presentation scheduled for next quarter where we'd showcase our 5-year expansion plan. That was a month ago. 3 weeks ago, things started to shift so subtly I almost missed it. Marcus began cancelling our Friday lunches. First it was an urgent client call, then a budget meeting, then he just forgot. When I'd stop by his office, he was always rushing somewhere else. His assistant Rachel, who'd always been warm and chatty, now barely made eye contact when I passed her desk. The mysterious meeting started 2 weeks ago. Marcus would disappear into conference rooms with HR doors locked, blinds drawn. When I asked Rachel about it, She mumbled something about quarterly reviews, but we'd just had those. Jennifer noticed it too, mentioning that she'd seen confidential budget spreadsheets on Marcus's screen when she'd dropped off a report, spreadsheets, that seemed focused entirely on our department's salaries and overhead costs. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, we'd just delivered the biggest win in company history. We were untouchable. Marcus had been my mentor for 5 years. He'd been at my mother's funeral, for God's sake. There was no way he'd betray us. I was wrong. Monday morning started like any other, except for the company-wide email that popped up at 8 sharp. Restructuring for growth, the subject line read. My stomach tightened as I opened it. The language was corporate vague, talking about optimization and synergy and aggressive market positioning. But one line stood out like a neon sign. We're bringing in specialized consultants to evaluate operational efficiency. The team gathered in our usual meeting room, everyone clutching their coffee a little tighter than normal. Before I could address the obvious anxiety, Marcus walked in with someone I'd never seen before. The stranger was everything Marcus wasn't: tall, aggressive in his stance, with a smile that never reached his eyes. This is Brandon Walsh, Marcus announced, his voice carrying an enthusiasm that felt forced. Brandon comes to us from Zenith Corp with an incredible track record of transformation. He'll be observing our operations for a while, looking for opportunities to enhance our performance. Brandon's handshake was deliberately crushing the kind men use when they want to establish dominance. His first words were, "Interesting space you have here. A bit cluttered for optimal productivity. Wouldn't you say Jennifer's desk was organized chaos? True, but it was her system and it worked." Carlos had his user research materials spread across 2 whiteboards because that's how he connected patterns. Amy's collection of marketing books might have seemed excessive, but she referenced them constantly. Derek's 3 monitors might have looked like overkill, but he was monitoring multiple code repositories simultaneously. Brandon saw inefficiency where I saw innovation in action. That first week, Brandon was everywhere and nowhere. He'd sit in our meetings silent in the corner, typing furiously on his laptop. When Jennifer presented her quarterly data analysis, he didn't ask a single question, just typed. When Carlos explained how our user research had identified a crucial demographic shift that saved a $2 million campaign, Brandon actually yawned. When Amy detailed her strategy that had generated 30% more leads with half the budget, he checked his phone. When Derek demonstrated the new algorithm that would cut processing time by 60%, Brandon just smirked. But the typing never stopped. Every meeting, every casual conversation by the coffee machine, every collaborative session, Brandon was there with his laptop documenting everything like an anthropologist studying a soon-to-be-extinct tribe. Thursday afternoon, he finally spoke during a meeting. Jennifer was explaining how she'd need to leave early on Fridays for her twins' therapy appointments, something she'd been doing for 2 years without any impact on her performance. That seems like a scheduling inefficiency, Brandon said, his voice carrying fake concern. At Zenith, we found that flexible schedules reduced productivity by 23%. Jennifer's face flushed. She'd worked nights and weekends to ensure her personal needs never affected deliverables. I started to defend her, but Marcus cut me off. Brandon raises an interesting point, he said, not meeting my eyes. We should examine whether our accommodations are affecting output. The room went silent. This was the same Marcus who'd given me a week off when my mother was dying, who'd sent Carlos home with full pay when his father had surgery, who'd celebrated Amy's graduation by giving her a bonus. This wasn't the man I knew. That evening, I tried to corner Marcus in his office. He was packing up, avoiding eye contact like a child caught stealing. "Marcus, what's really going on here?" I asked, blocking his path to the door. "This isn't about efficiency. Brandon hasn't even looked at our actual results." He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there made my blood run cold. Empty. Calculating. The warmth I'd known for 5 years was completely gone. Brandon has some interesting perspectives, Elsa. The company needs fresh, aggressive approaches to stay competitive. Sometimes teams get too comfortable, too set in their ways. "We just landed Morrison Industries," I practically shouted. "We're the most profitable department in the company," he pushed past me. Profitability isn't just about revenue, Elsa. It's about cost optimization. Brandon's methods have saved companies millions. His team from Zenith costs half what yours does. His team. The words hit me like ice water. "Marcus, what team from Zenith?" He was already at the door. "Just keep an open mind, Elsa. Change can be good for everyone. That night, I called an emergency team meeting at a bar down the street. Everyone looked haggard, stressed in a way I hadn't seen since our startup days. I've been updating my resume? Jennifer admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. My cousin at Amazon says they're hiring. Carlos nodded. My wife thinks I should start interviewing. She's scared we'll lose the house if something happens. Amy was crying quietly. 2 years, Elsa. I've given everything to this place. Is it because I'm the youngest? Did I do something wrong? Derek slammed his beer down. That bastard was logged into our proprietary code yesterday. I saw his screen. He was copying our entire repository. The pieces clicked together like a horrible puzzle. Brandon wasn't here to optimize us. He was here to replace us. Friday morning, I arrived at 6 a.m., determined to get ahead of whatever was coming. But Marcus's office light was already on. Through the glass, I could see him at his computer, and my heart stopped. On his screen was an email chain with the subject line, Transition Timeline, Marketing Analytics Replacement. I couldn't read the details from where I stood, but I saw enough. Brandon's name appeared multiple times. So did terms like immediate termination and cost reduction target and performance improvement plan. At the bottom, I saw a list of 5 names with dead ends with Zenith Corp email addresses. My phone buzzed. Jennifer had sent a group text. There are strangers in the lobby with boxes and Zenith Corp badges. They're asking security for temporary passes. I looked back at Marcus's screen, and this time I saw something that made my knees weak. My own name next to the words, Primary Obstacle to Smooth Transition. Recommend immediate removal to prevent team resistance. 5 years of mentorship, 5 years of trust, 5 years of building something extraordinary together. And he was planning to destroy it all for what? A percentage point of cost savings, a favor to Brandon, a kickback. I walked to my desk in a daze. My team already assembled, all of us watching as 5 strangers toured our department with Brandon pointing at our workstations like they were picking out furniture at an estate sale. Wednesday's all-hands meeting was supposed to be a routine quarterly review. Instead, it became our professional funeral. Brandon stood at the front of the conference room with a PowerPoint that was as slick as it was dishonest. Maximizing operational excellence through strategic restructuring, the title slide read. Marcus sat beside him, his face a mask of corporate neutrality, while the entire leadership team filled the front row. I'd positioned our team in the back close to the door, some instinct warning me we might need to leave quickly. As you can see from these metrics, Brandon began clicking to a slide filled with misleading graphs. The marketing analytics department, while generating revenue, operates at a 40% efficiency deficit compared to industry standards. The numbers were fiction. He was comparing our comprehensive analytics approach to bare-bones reporting services, like comparing a Tesla to a bicycle, and complaining the Tesla costs more to maintain. Jennifer couldn't stay silent. Those comparisons aren't equivalent, she said, her voice steady, despite her shaking hands. We provide predictive modeling, not just retrospective reporting. Our accuracy rate... Brandon cut her off with a condescending smile. I appreciate the input, but we need to focus on facts, not feelings. The fact is, Zenith Corp achieved similar results with half the headcount and 60% less overhead. Similar results, Carlos stood up, his accent thicker with emotion. We increased client retention by 40%. We saved the company $3 million. What similar results did Zenith achieve? Bankruptcy, because that's where they're headed after losing half their clients. Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying a warning. Carlos, please maintain professionalism. Brandon is here to help us evolve. Evolve. Amy laughed bitterly, surprising everyone, including herself. Is that what we're calling it when you replace a Formula One racing team with people who just got their driver's licenses? The room buzzed with uncomfortable murmurs. Other departments were starting to realize this wasn't just about us. If it could happen to the award-winning team, it could happen to anyone. Derek pulled out his laptop. Since we're talking about facts, he said, connecting to the presentation screen before Brandon could stop him, let me share some interesting facts about Mr. Walsh's track record. The screen filled with news articles, Zenith Corp sued for breach of contract, Brandon Walsh's cost-cutting leads to data breach company, collapses after Walsh consultation. Security, Marcus shouted, but Derek kept talking. 3 companies followed Brandon's optimization strategies. All 3 lost major clients within 6 months. 2 went bankrupt. The 3rd is in litigation. Those are facts. Brandon's composure finally cracked. This is unprofessional sabotage. These disgruntled employees are precisely why fresh leadership is needed. Fresh leadership. I stood up, my voice carrying across the room. You mean your former team from Zenith? The ones who were all terminated for incompetence 6 months ago, yes, Brandon, we did our homework too. The leadership team was shifting uncomfortably. The CEO's second-in-command, Margaret Chen, was typing furiously on her phone. The CFO was whispering urgently to the head of legal. Marcus stood up, his face red. Enough. This behavior is exactly why changes are necessary. This team has become insubordinate, resistant to improvement, and toxic to company culture. Toxic Jennifer pulled out her phone and hit play on a recording. Brandon's voice filled the room. These people are dinosaurs, especially the single mom, probably can't even think straight with all that baby drama. The Mexican one can barely speak English. The little girl playing strategist is a diversity hire at best. And the supposed hotshot developer probably just copied Google's code. The room exploded. HR Director Patricia Williams went pale. Legal was frantically taking notes. Margaret Chen stood up and walked out, her phone pressed to her ear. Brandon tried to recover. That's taken out of context. There's more, Jennifer said quietly. 2 weeks of recordings. Every inappropriate comment, every lie about our performance, every admission that this was predetermined regardless of our actual results. Marcus grabbed the microphone. This meeting is adjourned. Marketing analytics team, please remain. Everyone else dismissed. As the room emptied, other department heads stopped by our seats. Small gestures of support, a hand on shoulder, a whispered good luck, meaningful looks that said we see what's happening. But nobody spoke up publicly. Fear is a powerful silencer. When the room was empty, except for us, Marcus, Brandon, and Patricia from HR, the masks came off entirely. Your employment with Tech Vision Solutions will be terminated effective Friday morning. Patricia read from a prepared statement. You'll receive 2 weeks severance pending signature of these non-disclosure agreements and non-compete clauses. 2 weeks, after 7 years, after Morrison Industries, after everything we'd built. I looked at Marcus, searching for any trace of the mentor I'd known. It's business, Elsa, he said, not even trying to sound apologetic anymore. Brandon's team can deliver the same results at half the cost. The board wants aggressive cost reduction. I'm giving them what they want. And what are you getting, Marcus? I asked quietly. What's your cut of the cost savings? 10%, 20%, or is it just the promise that you'll keep your job when Brandon's done gutting the company? His face went white, then red. Clear your desks by Friday. Security will escort you out. As we filed out, Amy turned back. You taught me everything about marketing, Marcus, but today you taught me the most important lesson. Never trust anyone who says it's not personal, it's just business, because betraying people who trust you is as personal as it gets. Thursday was torture. We were dead employees, walking, everyone in the company knew it, but we had one final humiliation to endure. Marcus insisted we prepare comprehensive transition documents, everything Brandon's team would need to take over our responsibilities. He claimed it was for knowledge preservation, that it would help in our reassignment to other departments. Reassignment. Even as he twisted the knife, he couldn't stop lying. I spent Thursday night in my apartment documenting 7 years of work. Every process, every client relationship, every piece of the proprietary system Derek had built from scratch. My fingers flew across the keyboard, not because I believed Marcus's lies about reassignment, but because I wanted a record of everything we'd created. Evidence of what was being destroyed. At 2 a.m., my phone rang. Jennifer's voice was panicked. Elsa, they're already here. Brandon's team. I came back to get my kids' art projects, and they're here taking photos of everything, measuring our desks. They already have company laptops. By 3 a.m., our group chat was exploding. Carlos had driven by and seen the Zenith Corp van in the parking lot. Amy had noticed our names were already removed from the company directory. Derek had discovered his system access had been restricted to read only. As dawn broke over the city, I made one last desperate attempt. I called Patricia from HR at home. Her voice was sleep-thick, but became alert when she heard my name. Elsa, I can't discuss. Patricia, please, just tell me, was this really a board decision? Did Robert Chen approve this? A long pause. Then quietly, the decision came from Marcus. That's all I can say. I tried the CEO's office next, but his assistant informed me he was traveling in Tokyo unreachable. I emailed every board member I'd ever met. Within minutes, I received auto replies. All of them were coincidentally out of office until Monday. The fix was in. We were done. I called my team for one final gathering at my apartment. We sat in my living room as the sun set, 5 professionals who'd given everything to a company that was throwing us away like outdated equipment. Jennifer held her phone staring at her mortgage calculator. I don't know how I'll tell the twins we might have to move. They just started at their school, made friends. Carlos had his head in his hands. My father's medication cost $2,000 a month. Without insurance, Amy was curled in a ball on my couch. My parents were so proud when I got promoted. They told everyone in our town. How do I explain that it meant nothing? Derek just stared at his laptop, looking at the code he'd written, the system he'd built. 2 years of my life. Every optimization, every innovation. And tomorrow, Brandon's incompetent team will destroy it all within weeks. I opened a bottle of wine, then another. We drank and cried and raged against the unfairness of it all. But beneath the anger, there was something else. Determination. We weren't going down without documenting every single thing that had happened. Friday morning arrived with unusual security presence. 3 guards stood by the elevator when I arrived at 7:30. Marcus was already there with Brandon and Patricia from HR, waiting in the lobby like an execution squad. My team arrived within minutes of each other, all of us dressed professionally, heads high. If this was our last day, we'd leave with dignity. Marcus didn't even pretend to care anymore. He stood there checking his phone while Patricia delivered the corporate speak. As communicated, your employment with Tech Vision Solutions ends effective immediately. You have 1 hour to collect personal belongings. Security will assist you. Please surrender all company property, including badges, parking passes, and any electronic devices. Brandon couldn't resist twisting the knife. Don't worry, we'll take good care of your projects. Though honestly, from what I've seen, there won't be much worth keeping. Sometimes you have to clear out the dead wood to let the forest thrive. Dead wood, 7 years of innovation, of dedication, of breakthrough after breakthrough, reduced to dead wood. The security guards handed us cardboard boxes, the kind you'd use for donation drives or garage sales. 1 box to hold 7 years. I watched Jennifer carefully removing her children's drawings from her cubicle wall, each one a memory of birthdays, where she'd worked late school plays she'd watched on FaceTime while finishing reports. The guard stood too close like she might steal staplers. Carlos was packing his achievement awards, the ones recognizing his innovations and user research, his contributions to products that had generated millions in revenue. His hands shook as he wrapped them in newspaper, the guards watching like he was a criminal. Amy's desk was covered in sticky notes of encouragement I'd left her over 2 years, little reminders that she was talented, that she belonged here, that she had a bright future. She scraped them off one by one, tears streaming down her face, while a guard impatiently tapped his foot. Derek saved everything to a personal drive, his own code, his own innovations, everything he'd created before. Brandon could corrupt it. A guard tried to stop him, but Patricia nodded permission. Even she knew Derek owned his intellectual property, though Brandon would probably steal it anyway. But the cruelest moment was when Marcus started laughing. Actually laughing as Brandon showed him something on his phone. They were looking at cost projections, discussing their victory lunch, planning their celebration, while we packed our professional lives into boxes. "This is unfortunate," Marcus said loudly enough for everyone to hear, but necessary. "Sometimes you have to cut the fat to keep the body healthy." Elsa's team got too comfortable, too expensive, too resistant to change. Brandon's team is hungry, efficient, modern. It's evolution, really. Survival of the fittest. I walked over to him, my box balanced on my hip. "Marcus," I said quietly, "you taught me everything about leadership. But your final lesson is the most valuable. You've shown me exactly the kind of leader I'll never become." He shrugged. "You're too emotional, Elsa. That's always been your weakness. Business requires tough decisions. When you've been in the game as long as I have, you understand that loyalty is a luxury we can't afford. 20 years, Marcus. You've been here 20 years, and in 1 week you've destroyed your entire legacy for what? A bonus, a promise, from Brandon. That probably isn't worth the email it's written in." Brandon stepped forward. "The difference between winners and losers. Elsa, is that winners adapt. We see opportunity where you see tragedy. Your team is obsolete. My team is the future." I looked at his smug face and felt something shift inside me. Not anger anymore, but clarity. "You're right about one thing, Brandon. Your team is the future. A very short future. Because men like you always destroy everything you touch. You're not cost cutters or efficiency experts. You're parasites." And eventually, even Marcus will realize that. Security began herding us toward the elevator. Other departments had gathered watching through glass walls as we were marched out like criminals. Some looked away in shame, others in fear, knowing they could be next. A few brave souls waved goodbye, small gestures of solidarity that meant everything in that moment. In the elevator, pressed between security guards, Jennifer's box crushing against mine, Carlos trying to maintain dignity while crying Amy clutching Derek's arm, I felt the weight of complete defeat. 7 years reduced to a humiliating march through the lobby. The receptionist Maria, who'd always greeted us warmly, was already removing our names from the building directory. The parking attendant was collecting our passes, avoiding eye contact. Everything we'd built, everyone we'd worked with, every contribution we'd made, erased in real time. Outside on the sidewalk, 5 professionals stood with cardboard boxes, our entire careers reduced to what we could carry. Jennifer called her husband, her voice breaking as she explained what happened. Carlos sat on the curb, head in his hands, probably calculating how long his savings would last. Amy was throwing up in the bushes from stress, Derek rubbing her back while staring at the building with pure hatred. Then adding insult to injury, Brandon emerged with his 5-person team, all wearing brand new Tech Vision badges, laughing as they headed to lunch at Marcello's, the Italian restaurant, where Marcus and I had spent 5 years planning our department's future. Through the window, I watched Marcus raise a champagne glass, toasting to new beginnings, while we stood on the sidewalk with our boxes. Amy wiped her mouth, straightened up, and said something I'll never forget. They think they've won. They think we'll disappear quietly, take our severance, sign their papers, and vanish. But they forgot something important. What's that? Derek asked. They forgot that we're the ones who actually know how everything works, and they really should have waited until Monday to fire us, because a lot can happen over a weekend. 3 p.m. I was lying on my couch, still in my professional clothes box of belongings, unopened by the door, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was a recruiter who'd somehow already heard about our termination. But something made me pick up. Elsa. This is Margaret Chen from the board. We need to talk about what happened today. My heart stopped. Margaret was one of the most powerful board members, a venture capitalist who'd built 3 unicorn companies. She didn't make social calls. I understand you and your team were terminated this morning, she continued. I'm concerned about some irregularities in how this was handled. Can you meet me at the Fairmont Hotel bar in an hour? I arrived to find Margaret at a corner booth. Laptop open, expression deadly serious. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Robert called me from Tokyo an hour ago. James Morrison from Morrison Industries contacted him directly, threatening to pull their entire contract if your team isn't reinstated immediately. Robert had no idea you'd been terminated. In fact, according to our records, the board never approved any restructuring of marketing analytics. The room spun. You mean Marcus? Marcus acted completely without authorization. He doesn't have the authority to terminate an entire department, especially not one with your performance record. But that's not even the worst part. She turned her laptop toward me. We've been investigating some concerning financial patterns. Large consulting fees paid to a company that doesn't seem to exist except on paper. A company that happens to share an address with Brandon Walsh's apartment. My mind raced. Marcus is taking kickbacks. It appears so. But I need proof. Real evidence, not just suspicions. The transition documents you prepared, do they show anything unusual? I thought back to Thursday night, documenting everything. Actually, I have something better. Jennifer recorded Brandon making discriminatory comments. Derek has evidence that Brandon's team isn't qualified. Carlos documented every false claim in Brandon's presentation. And Amy might have something even more valuable. I called Amy immediately. Remember when you helped Rachel with her computer last month? Did you happen to notice anything unusual in her files? Amy's voice was excited. Actually, yes. She had a folder called Insurance, but it was full of emails between Marcus and Brandon dating back 3 months. She was backing them up in case something went wrong. Rachel never liked Brandon. She might help us. Margaret was already typing. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. I need your entire team there with everything you have. Everything. Every email, every recording, every piece of evidence that shows what really happened. Can you do that? We'd been beaten down, humiliated, discarded. But now we had something we'd lost that morning. Hope. And more importantly, we had a chance for justice. I called the team immediately. Conference call from my apartment, all of us still raw from the morning's trauma. When I explained Margaret's call, the change was instant. Jennifer stopped crying. Carlos sat up straight. Derek started pulling files. Amy was already texting Rachel. They thought we'd go quietly, Jennifer said, her voice steel. They thought 2 weeks severance would buy our silence. They have no idea who they're dealing with. We worked all weekend. My apartment became a war room. Jennifer compiled every piece of data showing our actual performance versus Brandon's lies. She created presentations that destroyed his efficiency arguments with facts showing that his previous companies hadn't saved money. They'd hemorrhaged it before collapsing. Carlos documented the real reason Zenith Corp had terminated Brandon's team. It wasn't budget cuts. It was gross incompetence that had cost 3 major clients and resulted in a data breach affecting thousands of customers. He found lawsuit documents, settlement agreements, cease and desist orders that Brandon had violated. Derek went deeper into the technical side. He proved that Brandon's team not only lacked the skills to maintain our systems, but had already corrupted critical databases during their Thursday night preview. He showed how their incompetence would cost millions in lost functionality and system repairs. Amy worked her magic with Rachel. Turned out, Rachel had been documenting everything for months, sensing something was wrong when Marcus started meeting with Brandon secretly. She had emails where Brandon promised Marcus a consulting fee of $200,000 once the transition was complete. She had messages where Marcus called us expendable assets and laughed about how we'd never see it coming. But the smoking gun came from Amy's investigation into the shell company receiving the consulting fees. It was registered to Brandon's wife, who happened to be Marcus's cousin. This wasn't just corporate betrayal, it was a family conspiracy to defraud the company. Sunday night, James Morrison himself called me. He was furious. His company had specifically chosen Tech Vision because of our team's reputation. The contract had a clause that voided the agreement if key personnel were removed without cause. Elsa, I'll make this simple, he said. Either your team is reinstated by Tuesday, or we pull the entire contract and go with your competitors. Furthermore, I'll make sure every company in the industry knows why. Marcus and Brandon won't be able to get jobs selling software to a lemonade stand. As Sunday turned to Monday, we sat in my apartment, 5 warriors preparing for battle. We'd been knocked down, but we weren't out. Tomorrow we'd walk back into that building not as terminated employees begging for our jobs, but as the only people who could save the company from the catastrophe Marcus and Brandon had created. The hunters had become the hunted, and they had no idea what was coming. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. We walked into Tech Vision's corporate headquarters, through the main entrance, heads high dressed in our best professional attire. The security guards who'd escorted us out Friday did double takes. The receptionist, Maria, actually gasped. "You're on the list for the boardroom," she whispered, sliding visitor badges across the counter. "Good luck." The executive elevator ride to the 30th floor felt like ascending to battle. When the doors opened, we could hear shouting from the boardroom. Through the glass walls, we saw Marcus pacing Brandon, gesturing wildly, and the entire board assembled around the conference table. Margaret Chen saw us and waved us in. Marcus's face when we entered was worth every moment of Friday's humiliation. It went from red to white to red again, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "What are they doing here?" he sputtered. "These are terminated employees. This is a security breach." "Sit down," Marcus Robert Chen commanded, his voice like ice. He'd flown back from Tokyo on a red eye, and his exhaustion only amplified his fury. "I believe these people have something we need to hear," Brandon tried to object. "This is highly irregular. These disgruntled former employees are obviously here to spread lies about..." Margaret cut him off. "Mr. Walsh, you're here as a courtesy. One more word and security will escort you out." She nodded to me. "Miss Peterson, please proceed." I connected my laptop to the presentation system. "Good morning, board members. What I'm about to show you isn't just about our wrongful termination. It's about a conspiracy to defraud this company, destroy its most profitable department, and enrich 2 individuals at the expense of shareholders, employees, and clients." The first slide showed our actual performance metrics. 7 years of consistent growth, $3 million in savings, 40% increase in client retention, industry awards, the Morrison Industries contract. Now I said clicking to the next slide, here's what Brandon Walsh presented last Wednesday. Every number is false. Every comparison is invalid. Every conclusion is designed to deceive. Jennifer stood, her confidence restored. Brandon claimed we operate at 40% efficiency deficit. This is calculated by comparing our comprehensive analytics to basic reporting services. It's like comparing a hospital to a first aid kit and complaining the hospital costs more. Our actual efficiency, when compared to true competitors, is 70% above industry standard. She clicked through slides showing Brandon's real track record. 3 companies, 3 failures, hundreds of employees terminated, millions in losses, lawsuits, bankruptcy. And in every case, Brandon walked away with consulting fees while the companies burned. Carlos took over next, his voice steady and clear. Mr. Walsh's team from Zenith Corp wasn't laid off due to budget cuts. They were terminated for gross incompetence, resulting in a data breach affecting 12,000 customers. Zenith is currently facing $40 million in lawsuits. Here are the court documents. The board members were leaning forward now, studying the evidence. Marcus had stopped pacing, slumped in his chair. Brandon's confident facade was cracking. Derek connected his laptop. This is what Brandon's team did Thursday night during their preview access. They corrupted 3 databases, deleted critical algorithms, and introduced vulnerabilities that could expose every client's data. If they'd had full access, the damage would be catastrophic. I can prove they lack even basic understanding of our systems. He pulled up code comparisons showing Brandon's team's attempts to modify their systems. It was amateur hour, like watching someone try to perform surgery with a butter knife. Even the non-technical board members could see the incompetence. Amy stood for the killing blow. Directors, what I'm about to show you explains everything. She pulled up the emails Rachel had provided. 3 months ago, Brandon approached Marcus with a proposal. Replace the marketing analytics team with his people, and Marcus would receive $200,000 in consulting fees through a shell company registered to Brandon's wife, who happens to be Marcus's cousin. The boardroom erupted. Robert Chen stood up, his face purple with rage. The CFO was frantically calculating liability. The head of legal was on his phone, probably calling outside counsel. Marcus tried one desperate defense. This is fabrication. These emails are fake. Rachel is lying because... Rachel walked in at that moment carrying a box of printed documents. Everything is here, Mr. Chen. 3 months of correspondence, financial transfers, even recordings of Marcus and Brandon discussing how to divide the consulting fees. I've been documenting everything because I knew it was wrong, but I was afraid to come forward until now. Margaret pulled up financial records on her laptop. The shell company exists. 2 payments have already been made, $50,000 each. The final payment of $100,000 was scheduled for this Wednesday after the transition was complete. Brandon stood up. I want my lawyer. Sit down, Robert commanded. You're going to explain exactly what happened, or I'll personally ensure you're prosecuted for fraud, conspiracy, and corporate espionage. The interrogation that followed was brutal. Marcus crumbled first, admitting he'd been struggling with gambling debts. Brandon had approached him with a solution that would solve his problems and make the company more profitable. He swore he believed Brandon's team could do the job. Brandon maintained his innocence until Margaret played a recording Rachel had made of him bragging about the scheme. The board was looking for cost cuts anyway. Marcus is an idiot who thinks he's smart. Once my team is in place, I'll have access to everything. Their proprietary systems, their client lists, their innovations. Even if TechVision figures it out later, I'll have what I need to start my own company. The room went silent. This wasn't just fraud, it was corporate espionage. Robert Chen stood up. Marcus, you're terminated effective immediately. Your 20 years with this company end today. Security will escort you out. Brandon, you and your team have 1 hour to leave the premises. Any attempt to access our systems or contact our clients will result in criminal prosecution. Marcus looked at me, and for a moment I saw the mentor I'd once known. The regret in his eyes was real, but it was too late. 20 years, 5 minutes to destroy it all. As security led them out, Brandon turned back. You think you've won, you're nothing special, any decent team could do what you do. That's where you're wrong, I replied.